Hello, and welcome to the official Sudoman Labs info log number 807. Alright, let's just cut the act. I'm Tact, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over the most important points of all my creations. Now, I'm sure by now that you've noticed a little connection between them all, if the new Orpheus trailer was anything to go by. So let's start off by making one thing clear. Is there any story to my creations? The answer is no. I've always hated making a story, because if one thing doesn't make sense, you have to write more to fix it, and stories need to have an ending. And the ending I need simply just cannot exist. But who's to say things don't have meaning? What my maps actually have is lore. By writing lore, I can go back and give unimportant factors like the Labyrinths their own past, and also be able to explain where they came from and what purpose they serve. I can add lore at any time and it won't affect anything else drastically. Of course, things do have importance. Speaking of the Labyrinth, we should probably get back to it later. We need to explain a couple more things first. Specifically, a couple keywords and figures used throughout the lore. And the first thing we have is Hyperspace. Hyperspace is probably the biggest key component in the lore as it ties almost everything together. Hyperspace is a dimension that functions as a sort of gateway between worlds. It's an in-between, if you will. We call Hyperspace the world between worlds, as it's the easiest way to explain it. Another really important term is the Hyperverse. The Hyperverse is what we use to explain all of the different worlds tied to Hyperspace at once. Anything that anyone has ever made in Fortnite creative mode is tied to the Hyperverse. It's what allows crossovers to happen. For the sake of the lore, yes, we're going to be calling the lore the Hyperverse lore. And finally, the most important key figure is Sudoman Labs. Who are they? Sudoman Labs is a research and development industry owned by its CEO, James Sudoman. They specialize in researching hyperspace, the rifts the dimension creates, and even exploring the dimension. Being a development industry as well, these guys in lore have officially invented the Rift to Go, the Junk Rift, and the Propomatic. Currently in New Orpheus, they are developing a suit that allows them to go deeper into the layers of hyperspace. More on that later. But now with the three important keywords out of the way, we can finally start explaining some lore. Since I mentioned it earlier, let's get back to the Labyrinth. So, Lost Labyrinth. It was a POI that was first introduced in Custom BR Ether. The design is actually that of one of my old block entries, but that's completely irrelevant to the lore. So, how did Lost Labyrinth get into New Orpheus with the new name Lost Labyrinth? Well, in the lore, hyperspace was actually discovered thousands of years ago. The group that originally discovered it decided they need to mark where they had already been. They obviously didn't have technology and all that back then. And the worlds they visited, they constructed a sort of monolith, a stone beacon to show that they've already been there. And these monoliths were the Labyrinths. And the next bit of lore we should go over is the metric Meteor. Originally part of Custom BR Ether, the Meteor someday vanished and was replaced with the Calm Caves POI. Pseudomonas Labs Branch C, or Branch Calamity, which is the one in New Orpheus, was actually experimenting with their Rift tech, and was able to pull the Meteor out of Ether's world and into the world of Orpheus. Speaking of Rift tech, we actually got to cover Hyperspace City now. The city of Hyperspace is actually where the name Hyperspace comes from. This city seems to have connections to the Hyperspace depths, which is why it can show up in so many worlds. It's also why all of the buildings have these rifts in them. This city is one of the first things that James Sudoman found while exploring the dimension. And yeah, that's why it's called Hyperspace. Now notice how I mentioned the depths just now. Truth is, hyperspace is made of many different layers called sublevels. Worlds are tied together by matchmaking hubs. Matchmaking hubs are tied together by hubs, which are tied together by the Desolate World. And the Desolate World is the hyperspace you guys very often see. I gotta be clear with you, the hyperspace depths, you're never gonna be able to visit them. In lore, the depths go on forever, there is no end to them, and because we physically cannot create this, we can only create a rough simulation of its design, because of the limited possibilities we have in creative mode. Honestly, I gotta wait for creative modding to come out before we can even create a simulation of it as well. Every single map in creative is connected to Hyperspace. Sudoman Labs are still researching different worlds, and the ones created by me are the first, so you might notice some hints towards them in my creations. And sometimes Sudoman Labs even have their own outposts. Yes, BHE 1v1 is canon to the lore here. So now that you know Pseudomonas Labs is in every single map I've made, and could even potentially be in every single map anyone else has ever made, wanna hear some fun lore? How did the boxes get into special delivery, you might ask? It's actually really simple, but really dumb at the same time. Somewhere in Hyperspace, someone made a world full of boxes. Nothing but boxes. And a desolate portal opened within that world and special deliveries world. Of course, all of the boxes started to fall out of the world and threw the portal into special delivery. Sudoman Labs sealed the portal in that volcano, and now there is just a ton of interdimensional cardboard boxes there. Yeah, that's the official canon story behind special delivery, guys. That is your official canon lore right there. So in Pocket Hills, Sudoman Labs did set up an outpost, but it's just there to research the world. There is nothing too important lore-based there. However, they did invent the drift boards. Alright, it's time for Infiltrator. You guys love this horror map. The Infiltrator, the monster you play as in that game, actually travels hyperspace as a sort of creature from the depths. It has the ability to create portals at will. Originally, it was actually captured by Sudoman Labs Branch K, but then it escaped containment and broke out into Evergrave Park, the world that Infiltrated takes place in. Having a creature, a monster out there, that has this optimum control of hyperspace and mobility within the dimension is kind of terrifying. Next up are the creator carriers. The Mark 1, the hub carrier, and the Mark 2, the weapons bed carrier, were both constructed by Sudoman Labs as sort of stations for their staff to stay. Some say that the inhabitants of the hub carrier create these worlds within hyperspace though. Who knows, are Sudoman Labs researching them? Anyway, Winter Solstice is up next. Who fights the toy makers on that night? I mean, of course you do, but in canon it's actually Sudoman Labs trying to prevent the world from being overtaken, so they can continue to research it. Now I gotta wonder, how does Todd actually get between here and Hyperspace City? Same questions for Gobble the Crafting Slime, how does he get from place to place? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I cannot explain Todd in the slightest. But Gobble does actually have a backstory. The cute little slimy guy actually comes from Hyperspace. If you've been in my matchmaking hub, you might know that already. Now that you understand the lore a little, I think we should go over one last thing, and this might be the most important part. James Sudoman himself. Who is he and what is he trying to accomplish? Well, Hyperspace actually has something in the depths. Something he wants, and it's something powerful. As to what this object is, I feel like some of you might have seen it before. Maybe it's present right now. Maybe it's pulling in hunters from other worlds right now. That object is the core of the hyperspace depths. You have worlds like the Nexus on one side and then that world on the other. But I gotta ask, what is beyond the Nexus? Only one time will tell. Once James Sudoman breaches that barrier between realities, that is when we can figure out what that really means. Now, I just dropped a bombshell on you. Once you realize what all of this means, or once you figure out what the lore has to say here, then you will understand what I just created. What if hyperspace was a metaphor for something? Anyway, everything in lore that I just told you, yes, it means that crossovers can happen. Sudoman Labs, they can appear anywhere, at any time. Honestly, the thought of them just appearing at anywhere in the world just puts an "oh no, it's them" thought in my mind, and I love it, it's great. And what I'm basically saying here is you guys can use Sudoman Labs in your creations. I'm not gonna get mad at you for using Sudoman Labs, because it makes sense in their lore. They would be there. They need to be there. It's part of their research. If you guys wanted to set up a Sudoman Labs outpost in your mini BR, be my guest. Sudoman Labs is a huge thing. It's extremely important to this lore. And this lore is a lot more complex and deep than you might even think. This video, it goes in depth about some of the more important parts of the lore. But some of you still might not even understand it. You guys are going to have to put some heavy brain work into figuring out what all of this means. Now, I could just explain it right here and there. I mean, maybe in my Discord I could explain what this actually means. But hey, that is completely up to you, what you guys do. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you understand the complex lore a little more now. If you like, feel free to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to go the extra mile, feel free to use code TACT in the Fortnite item shop, as it supports us creators massively. And if you don't want to use my code, make sure you're supporting someone else. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the Hyperverse. Peace.
Yeah.